down. We're gonna stand our ground. We know you're trying to open the gates of hell, but we won't back down. So yes, we'll stand our ground. We won't be pushed around. We must keep you from putting our kids in the ground, so we can't stand down. No, we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't stand down, brother. So we'll stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. 'Cause we know what's right. And we got plenty of fight. And if you think you're gonna keep pushing us around, well, you'll lose that crown. 'Cause we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've gotta stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. You know, it's pretty clear. If these lunatics think they have the right to strip us of our rights of self-defense, and if they're willing to do that, what else are they willing to do? We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. No, we won't back down. Back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've gotta stand our ground. So we won't back down. No, we won't back down. Virginians, you won't fight this fight alone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Happy Sunday. Thanks for spending the time with us, taking the time away from the Super Bowl. We really appreciate it.
Maybe some of them are going, oh, the Super Bowl's tonight. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
Probably not
Yes.
likely.
Anyway, I had a couple of interesting conversations on Facebook. People saying, why did you pick tonight? Well, we didn't want to wait till next week because there is so much going on in the General Assembly right now, and we just didn't want to take the time and wait till next week because
You know, my question is, why did they pick today to do the Super Bowl? Couldn't they have postponed it because of our meeting tonight? You know?
Yep. And we do have a guest with us tonight, Juan Dagger. Did I say that right?
Yes, dagger. Yes, like the knife, but with one G.
Okay. Like a knife that's illegal in Virginia, I think.
The shape of the blade.
Daggers are illegal. I'm sorry.
Just the blade. People, some of the idiots out there think that it's an out the front knife. It's not. It's the shape of the blade. But anyhow, yeah. So I'm glad you could come on here. We're just starting out.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
So we can. We'll start a little bit with what's happened in the General Assembly, and then we'll get to you, Juan. Is that all right? You got a little time? Okay. All right. So we are approaching the halfway point in the General Assembly right now. So, and this is where a lot of times people not understanding civics, understanding how government works, get confused, and the media doesn't help. The media will say, "Oh, this bill just passed the House," that doesn't mean anything as far as the final outcome. That's like the Indianapolis 500 where they just did the fourth lap. Well, there's more to go. So um, that's where we are. We're approaching the halfway point, and at this time, a bunch of gun bills have passed out of the House, and another bunch have passed out of the Senate. And there's still more percolating that have not passed out yet. Maybe some won't pass out at all. That's very possible. So we're continuing to watch. Now the key date is February 18th. February 18th is what's called crossover day. Up until that time, the two bodies only look at their own bills. So the House looks at House bills, the Senate looks at Senate bills. Once they hit the 18th, everything reverses. The House sends its bills over to the Senate. The Senate sends its bills that passed over to the House. So these are all the bills that passed each body switch. And the whole thing starts over again. We're back to subcommittees and committees and floor votes and so forth. So we're not quite at the halfway mark. Nothing that's happened is law. We don't know what's going to become law yet. And we won't know until the governor signs the bills or vetoes them or does some other things that she can do. We could talk about that a little later. But she has options. And until she signs the bill, it's just, saying that's not over till the fat lady sings. Well, that's kind of where we are with that. So right now, we're just watching these. We're trying to stop as many as we can. Now, those that have passed, some of these passed without any changes or with insignificant changes that really don't affect any of us. It could be a little minor technical thing they cleaned up that really doesn't mean stuff to gun owners. So in the alert that went out today, in case you hadn't seen it, there is a legislative update. So there's two things that come out with the word legislative in them. It's either a legislative update like came out today. Those typically don't have action items. That's like, here, hey guys, we just want to get you caught up. This is what's going on so that you know. If it's a legislative action alert or action item, that's a different creature. That means something's coming up fast. We need you to get online, contact your legislators using the system that we've already set up to make that as easy as pie, and get these messages out. Let's try to defeat these bills. Show up in subcommittee or committee if you can. The more people we have show up, the better off we are. So those are the two types. So today the alert went out. It's really an update to kind of get you up to speed. So these bills, for example, have passed the House. The HB 40, which deals with your quote unquote ghost guns, which are just unserialized homemade firearms, that cleared the House and will be going over to the Senate. HB 93, that's one that requires a person with a protective order against them or a person with a domestic violence conviction to surrender their guns to somebody. The key here is somebody 21 or older and don't live with them. Well, we don't like that bill because the restraining order or the protective order might have nothing to do with somebody that lives in the house. It may well be somebody at work, a neighbor, a family member that doesn't live with you that's got a protective order. So you should be, for example, as a husband, if the wife isn't the victim of some kind of domestic order, then there's no reason she can't hold the guns and lock them away from the husband until this is cleared up. But this bill makes it so you can't do that. And some people, I know I got an email from one person who read more into this than there was. He assumed that anything that fell under this was domestic violence. A man had beat up his wife, a wife had beat up his husband. I said, no. This covers a lot more than that. And we object to not allowing somebody in the family or an 18, 19, or 20-year-old who are allowed to own these guns to be able to have them until the situation is cleared up. One pro-gun bill did pass out of the House, but it's a mild bill. It's nothing we get overly excited about, but it passed out by a huge majority. It was like 98-1, and that was HB 101, Delegate Ballard. all that's doing is upgrading the concealed carry law to allow us to apply electronically as opposed to having to apply in writing with the form. So everybody seemed to be, except one person, was fine with that. So I expect that will probably sail into law later on, or when it finally clears the Senate and heads to the governor. It's unlikely something that popular is going to be defeated, but it's not impossible. Um, Delegate Lawfer. The Democrats ran on making things more affordable. Well, their version of that is to charge us $500 for a suppressor. And
an 11% excise tax on guns and ammo.
That's right. That's the excise. The excise tax is still cooking. I think it. I think I'll have to double check. I know it's cooking in one of the houses. I think it's cooking in both. No, it cleared the Senate. I'll get to that. But the House version of that is still cooking. Yeah, 11% tax. It's to the one of them's to the manufacturers of ammunition and guns, and the other one is another bill that's retail part. So the dealer would have to deal with it. And normally dealers are given some little piece of the tax to cover their cost of administrating all this stuff, but they're not doing that for any of the stuff they're putting in now. The dealer is just supposed to absorb it. This is all about punishing gun owners, punishing dealers. It's either a sin tax or however you want to look at it.
Yeah, it's about putting the industry out of business in Virginia. And if somebody can let me know in the chat if you can hear me better, I switched microphones. So I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Now, I'm going to skip down. I'm going to come back to a couple of these bills in a little bit. Delegate Hernandez put in a bill that makes hospitals off limits unless you have a knife that's less than 3.5 inches, which is better than the General Assembly's version of less than 3. But guns would not be allowed in hospitals. Right now, a lot of the hospitals have no gun signs, which they can do. I don't know why they had to do this law other than to try to poke gun owners in the eye. But hospitals can already put up a no gun sign, and it's trespass if you go beyond it. But this makes it a law with a class 1 misdemeanor, and they can confiscate your gun. Then we have 626 Delegate Callison. That says you can't have a gun in a university or college building unless you're doing certain activities. A lot of people thought you couldn't do that now. Well, you couldn't. The universities all have the public universities have policies against that, and you could be charged with trespass. But it's never good enough. Now they want to make it so they can charge you with an actual direct crime. Because trespass, you could say, "Well, I didn't know, and I'm gone," and the problem's over. They don't want that. Again, it's all about disarmament. Every time you see this stuff, why are they doing it? Keep thinking that they want to take your guns away. This is not. That's what it is. This fits if that's their goal, because they're charging you with a crime, and those crimes can disqualify you at some point. Go ahead, Pat.
DLD is asking, somebody made a comment about why people didn't show up for Lobby Day 2026, and we have that same question. And then DLD asked, there were a couple thousand people there. Do you think that was ineffective? I don't think it was ineffective, but I don't think it was nearly as effective as 2020 Lobby Day, and we should have had greater numbers than 2020. So
yeah, I got people
VCDL,
saying, well,
yeah.
Go ahead, Pat. Go finish, Pat. Go ahead.
VCDL tried to tell people that this was even worse than 2020 as far as the bills that were coming down the pike. And I don't know if people didn't believe us because they hadn't put the bills in, but we were hearing rumors about what was coming and seeing evidence of what was coming, and knew that we were going to have the permit to purchase bill and a lot of things that were much, much worse than what we saw in 2020.
Yeah, we screamed to the hills. We need a big turnout. We've got these bills coming. We know they want to do a permit to purchase. We know they want to do an assault, so quote unquote assault weapon ban. We know this and we know that. And we got a few thousand to turn out. The weather wasn't even that bad. That was one of the warmer lobby days. But yes, did it help? Yes, it did. Absolutely. But boy, 50,000 people? Oh heavens. Boy, what a difference that would have made. 100,000 people. Now we've got people communicating with us. Well, let's set up a march now. It's like, well, okay, the horses left the barn. So these bills are already rolling. By the time we put a march together, they're probably going to be signed into law. So you're just wasting your time. It's too late to influence that. It's too late to put together a march. That's what Lobby Day was. That's exactly what it was. But people weren't paying attention. We really tried to reach out, social media, VA alert. We tried to let FFLs know. Um, I think a lot of people were just in denial. Oh, well, this stuff will never happen. And then when it does happen, then they realize a little too late that they should have showed up for Lobby Day.
Juan, you were a team leader this year, right?
Yes, correct. I was a team leader for mostly Northern Virginia.
Then was this your first year at Lobby Day?
Yes, it was. It was my first year, correct.
So what was your experience? What was your takeaway from Lobby Day?
So look, this is how I feel. I do feel we could have. I think we may have lost this battle. I think this specific battle, these bills are gonna pass, or they're gonna pass. They're gonna dilute them a bit. Maybe they're gonna give us some crumbs. They're going to grandfather the magazines or something, but they're certainly going to pass. And the thing is that a single party has basically control of everything, supermajority, and why would they listen? They already have an agenda. I think it's naive to think that just by saying pretty please, they're going to change their mind. Now, I did feel, look, first thing I want to add, I do feel the Bill of Rights is a package. I think the Second Amendment, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. I feel the whole Bill of Rights is a package, and I think we should all exercise all those rights. I think the First Amendment is just even more important than the second. Like you have to be organized, you have to have a community, you have to be well educated, and if you lose one of those amendments, the whole Bill of Rights starts losing direction. I think the third, the fourth, the fifth, they're also very important too. Now, I think the Bill of Rights is nonpartisan. However, it is becoming like a partisan issue. Like it's really obvious which party is doing which one and which party is taking the other. In this case, I felt the Republican Party was a little bit more open to listen to VCDL. Unfortunately, I think the Democratic Party, they already have an agenda, and some of them were trying to be nice and friendly. Some of them didn't even show up. Some of them were also rude. But I think I mean, the battle is lost at this stage. Now, I think what I'm here for is that I think the next discussion is exactly how are we going to fight now? I think that's the next part. And I'm going to stop there. I know I've said a lot, but go ahead in case you have a question.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll swing back to that. I'm just going to wrap up what's happened with a few other bills remaining, and a couple of them are important ones that we need to go over. Another one that cleared the House, by the way, was Delegate Downey 871. This is another one that says, yeah, if you got a person that's prohibited in the house or someone under 18, then the gun. If you're don't have the gun on your person, it's supposed to be in a locked safe, unloaded, but it can be loaded if it's in a biometric safe. So again, the gun controllers don't really understand this stuff. They're not gun owners. So they don't realize that, some of these biometric safes are nice, but they're also not as dependable as one might like in an emergency. If you got plenty of time to open the safe, you can fiddle around with the fingerprint thing, that's fine. In an emergency, they can be a little undependable. It may take you a little time before it can read your fingerprint correctly. So that's still problematic. That's the only. I mean, what do they care as long as the safe is locked? And somebody else pointed out that all biometric safes have a key that you can use to get in. So with the key, you get around the biometrics. So again, the people that don't know anything about guns are writing this stuff. Now let me hit the bills where there's important changes. So there has been some changes in key legislation dealing with anything dealing with assault firearms. And when I say assault firearms, that's the term in Virginia law. You know, whether we like the term or not, that's what it is in the law. And one of them, SB 727, Senator Jones. This is one that had where you couldn't carry an assault firearm in public, on public streets, roads, alleys, sidewalks, any public right of way, public park, or any other place of whatever nature that's open to the public. That bill now exempts handguns, doesn't apply to handguns. So it's just rifles and shotguns that fall under the definition of a assault firearm that are covered by that. The other two that were changed is HB 217, Delegate Helmer, again, our good buddy Delegate Helmer. What's different from how the bill was introduced is in committee, they changed it now. They got rid of the ban on somebody from 18 to 20-year-old having a handgun or a assault weapon, assault firearm. They got rid of that. We're back to 18 and below 18. So basically, 18 to 20 have gotten taken out of that mix. They're allowed to have handguns. They're allowed to have assault firearms under the change. Also, magazines have been changed to be grandfathered. You won't be able to buy new ones after July 1. You won't be able to sell the ones you got after July 1. But what you've got, you can hang on to, at least for now, indefinitely. But again, that doesn't mean they won't keep coming back. Again, civilian disarmament is the end game here. So don't think that, oh, good, they got what they want. Now they'll leave us alone. No, they will not leave us alone. Okay, it's not going to happen. So we're going to keep fighting this. But they did modify that on HB 217. The equivalent bill in the Senate, SB 749, Senator Salim, same thing, except he knocked out the 18 to 20-year-olds being prohibited. And the difference is instead of a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds being something you can't buy or sell after July 1, his version is 15 rounds, 1-5. So still, an AR, any of the AR magazines wouldn't be useful unless they had one that held 15 or 10 rounds. Most are 20 or 30, for example. But those have been grandfathered. And so you won't be able to buy new ones after July 1. You won't be able to sell the ones you've got, but you will be able to keep the magazines you have that hold more than 15 rounds. But that does mean you can buy 15 rounders after July 1, just not 16 rounds. So again, these are arbitrary numbers, 10 rounds, 15, all multiples of the numbers of fingers on our hand. And that's probably all the science behind it. Now, let me say that on these, a lot of people are probably going, well, wow, that's a relief. You know, boy, they were not going to grandfather my magazines. I got 30 of them, and, I don't know what I'm going to do with these. Thank God. But you have to understand, yes, that's nice, and it's nice that they did that. But VCDL's position is we continue to fully oppose these bills. I don't care what changes they make to them other than defeating them or getting rid of them, withdrawing them. Other than that, this is like somebody pulling a gun on you and saying they want all the money in your wallet. And then as you're sweating, thinking, man, that's my entire week's worth of money. And then they say, well, okay, we'll just take half your money. You've still been robbed. It's just, yeah, they mollified you by taking less. Therefore, you're relieved it wasn't as bad as you thought it was, but it's still bad. If somebody said, okay, I'm gonna put a quart of urine in the punch bowl, would you drink it? Probably not. So instead, they're just going to put a drop in there. You're still not going to drink out of that punch bowl. So this is how we have to look at it. I'm not particularly grateful of any of this. To be grateful, they need to get rid of it because it's all aimed at coming after our stuff. And if they're not taking it today, wait till next year. Then the 15 round will drop to 10. The 10 would drop to 7 or something. So we're not accepting any of this without a fight. If it passes the way it is, yeah, it's nice that they're grandfathering, but we'll still see them in court. I just want to make that clear. We're not saying, okay, we're okay now with this. We're not okay with this. We're not okay with any of these bills that touch our rights.
And when we do go to court, we will ask for emergency injunctions to try to put a stop to the bills actually taking effect.
As soon as the governor signs the bills, we're ready to rock and roll. We started doing some planning in December, so we should be working well into the power curve. But we'll see how this shakes out. Again, we just don't know. So much could change. Again, part of this is, I have to say that the pressure does work. No, we're not going to be able to stop everything, but I've seen the pressure stop bills that the Democrats could have easily passed, but they got enough pressure where they walked away from them. One was a restaurant ban that they tried to put in a year or two ago. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a few of these other bills that they put in just kind of disappear into the ether because they really don't want to take the heat. They've got too many people that are maybe against these. I'll give you an example too of how this stuff works. In the House Firearms Subcommittee, we had a Democrat vote for a vote against a gun control bill, and she voted against it. Her delegate Pope Adams. I'm sure she did it because she was getting flack from her voters, and she realized that for her to support that was going to hurt her politically. Maybe she's haven't looked recently, maybe she's in a purple district and really wants to be very careful. But pressure does work. It didn't stop the bill though because of the big majority that the Democrats have. But we need to keep up the pressure, and we need to have a big lobby day next year. We need to fund the lawsuits. We need to make it clear that you're not going to get away with this. We're going to sue you over this. There's going to be a battle, and some of the stuff you want's unconstitutional, and hopefully it'll never take effect if we can get a court to put an injunction on it.
So there was one question about, does the magazine ban cover pistols as well as long guns?
It covers magazines.
Yes, it's all magazines. Two magazines have a different capacity, but we will keep you up to date on what the final bill is. There's still changes being made as they work through the system. So
Yeah. At some point, go ahead.
This is not necessarily the final version. And then there's been quite a few people asking about raising funds. It will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight these lawsuits. And yes, we could use the funds, and you can visit vcdl.org/donate and pick whether you donate to the foundation, which is a C3 and a charitable contribution, and that is to fight lawsuits, or you can contribute to VCDL, which also helps fund the lawsuits and helps fund the lobbying. And then there's the PAC is raising money for the next time the General Assembly is up for election in 2027. The entire House and Senate are up for re-election. So the PAC is raising money to get better people into office then. But to all the people that are talking about Vexit and about leaving the state, rent an apartment if you move. And Vexit is, that's considerable, worth consideration for some people, but what it's going to do is leave a very blue Virginia that will never come back. So we need to really stand and fight. Not cede to another state or move to another state. If you're moving to another state, rent an apartment, because this will follow you. It will follow to all 50 states if we don't stop it right here.
We have to stand up and not let it go. It has to be clear. So,
may I speak, or do you still have something on the agenda?
That was the main thing there. If you want to talk a little bit, you were going to talk about the Constitution, the various other articles of it.
Yes,
and talk to us a little bit about Venezuela, where you're from, when you get a chance. What it was like to have a gun permit down there and everything in the old days.
Well, time is limited. We need to focus and we need to establish clear objectives with real actions. Now, a couple of things I can say. I said we lost the battle. Now, we didn't lose the war. And I think, again, going back to the First Amendment, I think we're losing the propaganda front. I insist, the Second Amendment is not partisan. If you read the Federalist Papers, if you read the story of this country, what the Second Amendment says basically is every single person, able body, is responsible to secure the free state. And that means that if Philip gets robbed by enemies of the US, and then they use that money and those resources to attack somewhere else, we all lose. That's basically what happened in 9/11. Terrorists stole airplanes and they used it against us. And what happened with the fourth plane that was going to the Capitol? It was stopped by we the people. So basically, the founders envisioned the country as maybe like the Switzerland model, in which every single able-bodied person, able-bodied citizen is responsible to secure a free state for many reasons. I already explained one, that enemies of the U.S. can attack different civilians, and the government cannot be everywhere at the same time. That's one thing. Second, if we had a government who could be everywhere at the same time, that would become a totalitarian regime. Now, freedom is not free. The cost of freedom has many costs. One cost of freedom is vigilance. If you want to be free, you got to be aware. You got to be vigilant. So, do you want to live in a free society, or do you want to live in a totalitarian big state where the government controls everything and surveys everybody? So that's also a warning on the Second Amendment. Now, we are losing the First Amendment. We're losing the war in the First Amendment because for years they propagandized people into believing that guns are evil, the bad guys have guns. And let me tell you something. It's not that good guys with guns save the day. It's good guys and good girls with power. So we need more good people, people with good morale, people with good principles in positions of power. And I'm talking both economic power and political power. And I think that what VCL must do is that we need to get again the idea that it to be American is to be a gun owner. To be American is to be well regulated. That's also another thing. Well regulated means well trained, organized, well stocked, solvent, well communicated. Uh, having networks. Like just keeping and bearing arms is not enough. You cannot just drop arms in the middle of nowhere and expect to have a free state. And basically, when you look at gangs and criminals and cartels, they are not well regulated militias. So that's also what the founders want. So I think this is a problem of propaganda before a problem of Second Amendment. And I will pause there, but I have other messages for you. I don't know if you have any questions, or if you disagree. Feel free to disagree. Dissent is the highest form of patriotism.
Yeah, well, the battle covers all different fronts. Yes, of course. The Second Amendment is sort of the glue that kind of holds everything together, but some of it's already slipping in the sense, yeah, we can see our First Amendment there. We're getting into hate speech and other things that are prohibited. Well, one man's hate speech is another man's freedom of speech. That's the whole idea of freedom of speech, lets you say things that are politically may not be nice or make people feel good or may offend somebody. But you've got that freedom. Now that doesn't mean there's not consequences, right? You offend people and then they may not want to talk to you anymore. They may completely disregard you, but that's the price you pay. But at least you're not thrown in jail for doing that. And we look at England to see what they've done there. It's horrendous. They had somebody that came to the United States and shot a shotgun and was videoed and posted a video of him shooting a shotgun in Florida. And when he got back to England, they detained him and so forth. It's Looney Tunes, and of course now they want to add other religions, and they want to make it so, well, if you did it because of religion, or you did it because you don't like girls, or you did it because you don't like white people, or whatever it is, they want to keep adding more crimes to enhance stuff and take away guns if you did it for one reason or another. And it's all part of the same thing. It's all part of that march towards losing our freedom. And yeah, Fourth Amendment, we have to watch that. That's under attack. government likes to take the easy way. It'd be easier for police to solve crimes if they could just walk into any house without a warrant, just come in at 2 a.m. and do a search. Just think of all the crimes they could prevent if they did that. But that's why we've got a Fourth Amendment, and that's why we have to keep protecting this stuff, because government is going to want to chop away at that. Every time, for example, the police say they need a new tool to help fight crime, as I tell our members, every time they say that, I've noticed that that tool comes out of our liberties, that they need us to have less liberty so they have more tools to fight crime. At some point, you draw a line and say, no, you cannot take any, again, I take a tool from me. I've got my rights, leave them alone, do your job as best you can. The founding fathers, I think, accepted that sometimes bad guys get away with bad things because of the protections that we have to keep an innocent person from being prosecuted. And but it's a battle in all directions. But there are organizations that focus on the First Amendment. There are organizations that focus on the Fourth. Our primary focus is on the
No,
second.
yes, I agree. I agree. I'm saying I'm not going to say that we're going to go to the courts and fight like a First Amendment issue or a Fourth Amendment issue. I'm saying that you have to see it as a whole. And as a community, let me give you an example. The reason we have a First Amendment and they put the religion clause was because the US at the time had many different religions. And then they came to the problem. It's like, well, we're all so different. We have so many different churches, mostly Christians, but many different churches. And it was like, now what do we do? Like, what religion do we put to the government? And they said, like, let's agree on this. Like, there is a wall between church and state, and that's something that the U.S. has maintained for so many years, and that's something that we need to recover again. Like, we're all very different in general. Not talking about religion in general. Talk about everything. Like flavors. Now we have like vegan, gluten free, and if we want to win this battle, if we want to preserve the Constitution, we need to know how to agree on certain things and learn to disagree on others. But for that, we need to keep the government out of these things as well. And I think a problem is that government has been expanding and expanding more and more.
Mhm.
In the case of Virginia, the gun bills are worrisome, but they're putting a tax on everything. They're putting a tax on dry cleaners. They're going to bankrupt dry cleaners. And it's like, at what time does this stop? And they're basically demoralizing and making everybody more dependent on government, and they're basically bankrupting the state through economic means. So going back again in the concept of VCDL and gun rights and Second Amendment, we need to do work with the First Amendment. We need to promote a well-educated population. We need to bring back, teach kids how to properly use arms. Like they basically make them taboo, or like they're creating like the enemy of the Bill of Rights is creating this propaganda that only bad guys have guns and only guns are evil, and we should disappear them magically as if it were possible. And that's where we're going in this direction. And we can all agree on the problems. Like there was another lobby group lobbying that day because I think somebody was murdered with a gun. They had a Superman S on the head. I don't know if anybody saw it. And I agree that I mean, like that's really bad. But the problem wasn't the tool. The problem was the person who murdered this person. And the government cannot protect you everywhere all the time unless we become a totalitarian regime.
Right, and
So,
even
so
then, you can't be protected all the time. Then you're frightened by the government that knock on the door in the middle of the night, that they're coming for you. Yeah, I've noticed that even our churches, though, have been cowed a little bit. In the founding days, the churches often where sermons were given, teaching people about, in essence, talking politics. To make the country a better place. Well, then they became C3s, and now churches are afraid to really talk politics. But morals and politics, I think, go hand in hand. You can't have good politics in a country like we have with immorality. The founding fathers knew that what kept our republic safe was people that were moral and educated. And again, the civilian disarmament thing doesn't want you to be moral and doesn't want you to be educated. They
Well,
barely
well,
teach civics even anymore.
well regulated includes you have to be sober, you have to have some morality principles. You cannot just like throw weapons in the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
and expect that to be a secure free state.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, I mean, but again, I think the message is not getting through. I think what the enemy propaganda is pushing, what I said, guns are evil, these are weapons of war, that they
Hmm.
have no home in our, no place in our homes. Of course, they're weapons of war. That's the whole purpose of the Second Amendment. That civilians, look, when the people fear the government, you have a tyranny. When the government fears the people, you have a republic and a free state.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's for sure. And I can't think of any firearm just about that wasn't a weapon of war at some time. At one time, the musket was the weapon of war, and every able-bodied American was expected to have a weapon of war. That was what they had back then. Then we went to the single-shot cartridge rifles, like the rolling blocks. That became a weapon of war. One shot, changed the cartridge. Then we went to lever actions for a while. Lever actions were a weapon of war. Then bolt action rifles were a weapon of war in World War One and into World War Two, and sometimes they're still used by snipers and so forth. So bolt actions are weapons of war. Then semi-automatics became weapons of war in like World War Two. And then fully automatics became weapons of war a little bit. They actually started late into World War One, but that went on from there and is now the primary weapon of war. But all this stuff has been weapons of war. Firearms are that tendency, and that's exactly what the founding fathers expected us to have: weapons of war. How else could we be a militia and be in a position to take back a government that's gone tyrannical if we didn't have weapons of war? But
That
it,
Well,
that yeah, that's the message that also VCDL and the pro Second Amendment has to push. That yes, these are weapons of war in the hands of law-abiding civilians in a civilized society. And again, let's first, the seal of the United States, the eagle, we favor diplomacy. Let's talk things through. Let's solve this at the court. Let's talk. And the Second Amendment is the last resort.
is
And
the
that's
last
actually
resort.
that is in the Declaration of Independence. Prudence.
right.
Prudence before going into war.
Pat,
Now,
what do you want to say? Sorry.
So,
one
a
yes.
couple of things. First off, the Second Amendment and the entire Bill of Rights was written right after we had just won a war where all of the people fighting the war to gain their independence, the vast majority of them came to that war with their own arms. It was not fought with the government issued weapons. We didn't even have a government to issue weapons at that time. All of the weapons that were used to defeat the British were individually, privately owned, or business owned weapons. And so to say that weapons of war don't belong in the hands of the people, that is entirely opposite to the intent of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, it'd be
No,
like
I
arguing
agree.
that the First Amendment says that you shouldn't allow Catholics to exist. And no, the
Well,
First Amendment does just the opposite. It protects that.
that's a great point. I'm going to go to the extremes. Pastafarians who worship a flying spaghetti monster in many states, I believe they can wear a pasta strainer in the driver's license or in the passport because we have so much freedom that it gets to that extremes, and I think that's great. That's the cost of a free society. Freedom of religion means people who are very different from you, who disagree with you, exist. Now, as long as that's under the Constitution, like I think nothing is above the Constitution. As long as that's under the Constitution, live and let live. That's my message. Mind your own business. However, we agree here on that. The anti-Second Amendment front disagrees, and they believe that no, that was for an actual militia, and we should actually take all these weapons and we should seize them, and every gun owner is a crazy militia, and that's what they showed in the media. I
Yes, it
was wearing
is.
a suit. I was wearing a suit, but my wife got a video. She was here. Look, dangerous militias have taken Richmond, and they showed a guy wearing like a Punisher hoodie or something.
Yeah.
So we're losing the propaganda wars. That's one thing. The
Uh,
second, yes.
I was going to say, people really. One of the things I thought would be interesting too, as you're talking about this, is, Juan is an immigrant from Venezuela, so we all know that that's a big mess right now. And I think it's interesting listening to you talk too, Juan, because I see this frequently. A lot of times, immigrants who come to America appreciate our freedoms here and understand them better than those of us that were born here. I mean, I've seen them from Russia come here, and they're some of our fiercest protectors of the Second Amendment are Russian women. It's an amazing thing. And we in Venezuela, we know some other people from Venezuela. Same thing. They come here. They really know what they're doing. Of course, you're taught civics and stuff to become a citizen, but still your passion shows right through, and you have a reason for having that passion. There's a reason that you aren't in Venezuela, that you chose to live here. And I think a lot of people, I mean, if you have anything you want to share about what it was like, yeah, I think you said you were a gun owner at one time in Venezuela,
Uh,
and had to jump
yes,
through the hoops to get a
I
permit.
had.
And
Well, look, time is limited. I don't want to
you
like
know,
rest too
we
much.
got
Yeah.
spend 5 minutes and talk to us a little
No,
bit
no,
about
I
Venezuela.
know. Well, Venezuela had a two-party republic very similar to this one for 40 years, from 58 to 98. And it's a longer story of how the republic failed. And this is like a warning for Americans. The republic failed, and my grandma used to say there was a time in which people would vote for different parties and sit at the same table. However, with years, polarization became bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that family members said, if you voted for the other guy, don't talk to me again. And one of the reasons I think is that government got bigger, bigger, and bigger. And you had to get close to the government to get some crumbs of the oil. And the government became such a big part of your life that it became a totalitarian regime. Um, but it was stitched through fraud. It was stitched through like stupid jingles and like songs and like and lies and deceit. Eventually, what happened? Leadership was very old, and there wasn't like a younger, but the older politicians didn't let like a youth to join, and there was no new generation. And it's a long story, but in the 1990s, um, tyrannical enemies of Venezuela and the US managed to infiltrate the armed forces, managed to demoralize, to corrupt. And then we had a coup attempt. We had riots in '89. The riots were, in hindsight, it's been proven, the riots were incentivized by external enemies. And the riots caused, the government had to send a national, it was an ambush, basically. It's a false flag operation. You dress up as like an internal enemy, you burn a few churches, you loot, but you're an external enemy. Then the government has to send a national guard or the military, and then the opposition, the tyrannical opposition, starts saying, "Look, this is a tyranny. They call you what they are. Like this is a tyranny. We need to change the government. We need to amend the constitution." And then in '99, they did a blitz. A third party took everything, and they did a blitz. In 6 months, something that's happening in Virginia here, they modify every law, 100 laws in 30 days. Taxes, these, now another tax, and the land tax, and the land reform. It's a blitz. And like in 1 year, the Nazis did it too. Like in one night, they took over. So, I mean, I would say tyranny is rooted in hate. That also happens in 1984. Um, we have to avoid hate. We have to avoid outrage. I feel a lot of outrage. I see a lot of people on YouTube channels calling for rebellions and insurrections, and that's not good. I think we should switch to love. I think we should have a high moral ground. I think we can win this through the American way, through dialogue, through communication, using the First Amendment, through community, and I think that's part of my message.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you were talking about Venezuela, I mean, it was like I'm going, boy, I'm checking off your list, going, whoa, okay, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. Yeah, there's a game plan out there, and Venezuela is an example of how that game plan played out. And except there won't be anybody to come rescue us if we end up going down the tubes. There won't be an equivalent of America that comes in and takes a tyrant out. But um, it's uh, it's an eternal battle, and our founding fathers knew that. They knew that government would be doing overreach, no matter how good you make the government. You get some wonderful people in government, and I've met some incredible people in government. Smart, made me proud to think that they worked in the government. These were good people. But I also have met and have seen plenty that were attracted to government for all the wrong reasons, for all the unelected power, or for whatever reason. They're in there and they shouldn't be in government, but that government attracts them. And that in turn is why government will slowly turns tyrannical over time. The wrong people get in there, and then you've
Now,
got to maintain power. They got propaganda and everything else to do that. We're going to say one.
I want to add this. Like, look, I helped in a local election here, District 13. And to make it very brief, because a lot of people say, what, voting, 50% of the registered people didn't vote. 50%, that's half. And the winning delegate only got 20% of the votes. So, and that's something that's written in. I think another thing we have to learn is that we need to have a militia mindset. We need to think that like a militia. If you have 1 out of 5 of the support of the local population, you can win. Now, with only 20% of the votes, this person won. What happened to the other 50%? I mean, they had 3 choices on the ballot. They didn't care. They didn't know. And I think that's something also we have to work on. Like, why so many people don't, why so much apathy? Like, what's
Yeah,
happened?
that's a major problem. We're trying to reach out. One of the most apathetic groups in gun owners are the hunters. And one of the
Hmm.
things I want to do once we're through with this session is I want to see if I can get invited to talk at various hunter organizations around the state and have a chance to talk to these guys directly and get them to really understand that they're key to putting an end to this. But they need to step up to the plate and stop being isolationist, saying, "Well, this doesn't apply to me, so I don't care." That attitude is going to destroy everybody. We need people to say, "I do care," even if it doesn't affect me. It affects my neighbor. It affects my children or their grandchildren. It affects another American in a negative way. We need to take that selfishness out. Not It's not all about us. It's not about me. It's about us as a country. And that's what we're up against. Yeah, human nature tends to be rather complacent. If things are going smoothly, people just naturally have a tendency to say, well, if that's going smoothly, I'm not going to worry about it. I got other things I need to worry about. With politics, you can't do that. That's like
Well,
ignoring the fact that I don't see a wolf, not realizing there's 10 of them patrolling the woods around you, just waiting for the time to jump at you. Just because you don't see danger doesn't mean it's not there.
complacency kills. Complacency kills. Um, Look, I think that's also something I want to say. I see a lot of rebelliousness. I see a lot of comments like, "I will not comply," come and take it. And I think everybody should be really smart about this. I think first we need a high moral ground. I think we should always be law-abiding citizens no matter what. Always comply with local law. Always say you're going to comply with local law, and always try to look as high moral as possible first. Two, don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. There's no need to say, like, come and take it. I'm here. There's no need for that. I would rather just say, hey, let's work it out. Think like a militia. And then third, and this is something that's complicated, a militia war, we need to have the militia mindset. It's based on three principles: speed, surprise, and deceit. And I think it's unfortunate because, of course, diplomacy is one thing. Like, diplomacy is like, rules are clear, I pay you, you pay me, right? War is hell because all war is based on deception. And once you go to war, people backstab you, people betray you, people are stealing. In a militia war, you use the weapons of the enemy against them. So you steal the weapons of the enemy. So to some extent, I think we're going to have to eventually steal the propaganda of the enemy and use them against them. And I don't have 5 minutes to explain that, but we're
Mhm.
going to have to do that. And let me give you a quick example. Like, if this is a purple state, instead of like suing the courts and spending hundreds of millions, why don't we just put a candidate on both parties on the primaries and win both primaries? Isn't that easier than just going to the courts and you're fighting in the courts? Like why don't we just win the primaries and that's it? I don't know how hard that is, but
Well,
it's
we've pushed that, Juan. We've emphasized to people that primaries have extremely low turnout. It doesn't take much turnout at all for you to pick a good candidate, or you can play a different game in Virginia. You don't register by party, so you could if you're a Republican, you could vote in a Democrat primary and pick the candidate
Virginia
that
is
you
one of
think
the primary states.
is either the best candidate that they have to offer or one that you think could easily be defeated when they run against the Republican. So you pick their weakest candidate would be one option. But the parties know that this is a weakness for both of them. That there's so much power in a primary where you pick the candidates that they almost hide when the primaries are being held and where they're being held and so forth. So, you that's where we kind of count upon the PAC to do homework and let our members know, hey, there's a primary in this district. It's coming up on July 16th. And it's going to be a firehouse primary or whatever, so that people know and can get there. But you also have to convince people they have to understand the power of this. I think some of them are just not getting it. But if they could pick the right candidates, that would change things dramatically. Then when you went to the polls too, if you had really good candidates, that would drive more people out saying, "Yeah, I really like this person. I really look forward to voting for this
Well,
person."
I'll go a step further than that and say encourage people that you think would be good in office to run for office. And now is the time for them to start their fundraising and so forth to run for the General Assembly in that 2027 election. They have to get signatures on the ballot and everything. But right now, it's time to start saying, okay, I'm going to run for office. So I'm going to form my committee and register with the State Board of Elections and start my fundraising and so on and so forth. So that come January, when I can actually start getting signatures on the petitions and so on and so forth, I'm already positioned and I have the groundwork laid out. So get involved. We cannot have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, unless we, the people, get active and become a part of the government system.
Yeah,
And if
somebody's going to pick these leaders, and it may as well
mm-hmm,
be us, right?
mm-hmm.
Because if you don't vote, somebody else is going to pick it for you, and you may not like what they pick.
Look, as I said, 20%, so 1 out of 5. If you
Mm-hmm.
convince 1 out of 5 people in District 13 over here in Virginia, that's it. You would win the primaries. It's a little bit difficult, but it's not that difficult. And
Right.
that's a principle of militia warfare.
It's worth it.
General Mao wrote that on his book. You need 1 out of 5 of the local support of the population. So that also applies to diplomacy too. That also applies to politics.
Yeah, well, Virginia's a red state when you look at it. If you look at a map that's color coded, it is bright red through most of the state. There's little purple pimple, the blue pimples that are on part of the state are kind of what's driving things. But there is a tremendous amount of red. The trouble is that tremendous amount. Too few people from that area are voting. A lot of them have it in their brain. Oh, the blue parts are going to drive us. My vote doesn't count. They don't realize that if they're thinking that way, so might another 1,000 people in their area think the same way, and that gets the other side everything they need to win. They basically have beat you down to say there's just no point in you showing up, so don't you bother. But they know that if the people turned out in those red areas and really turned out, they'd find out the state may not be as blue as you might think it is. But right now, the blues are activated and the reds are sitting on their hands, and then they're shocked when things go blue. No, it's. I think it's our own fault. We've got plenty of areas with lots of red that could come out and get things fixed.
Yeah, but looking at fault is not going to solve that much right now. It's lessons for the future,
Right.
but we need to focus on moving forward and digging out of this hole that we dug for ourselves and fell into. And Juan was right. We need to start taking back the rhetoric. We need to, like, for instance, this supposed gun violence prevention committee that they want to form. You know, what we need to be saying to them is, instead of spending the money on studying a certain kind of violence that is perpetrated by people with mental problems, why don't we spend that money on facilities and solutions for the mental problems in the first place, and start treating the problem and not putting a band-aid on a symptom?
I
You
will
know?
say this though, Pat, and I agree with you that I mean we know that's really the problem. Most of
Mm-hmm.
this stuff is either people are just criminally insane
Mm-hmm.
or have no empathy or whatever. They can kill you and not even worry about it, and they don't care if they go to jail. Um, but the problem is for the gun control crowd, they're not interested in that kind of a solution. They want to disarm us, so they're happy with all this stuff happening. They're happy with the crime. They're
Right,
happy with people being murdered. So
but that
they,
pulls the curtains back, Philip, and it
it
shows
does.
the public that is voting for these people, and the press and so on and so forth. It starts changing public opinion, and when we see, uh, so the statistics that they're using against us are the number of gun deaths, and the vast majority of those are suicides. Those people that are depressed and contemplating suicide, where can they get help? Most of the mental facilities are full and with waiting lists. Creed Deed's own son, who committed suicide, couldn't get a hospital bed, and so he couldn't get the treatment that he needed to prevent him from committing suicide. Yet Creed Deeds, instead of pushing for more mental health facilities and more pathways to help people like his son, he's pushing to restrict good people who don't have mental problems and aren't contemplating suicide, and restrict their Second Amendment rights. So, let's turn those tables and let's shed light on what the real thing is. And I'm not saying that all mental health people are dangerous, or
Right.
because they're not.
They're not.
There's a lot of mental health problems that are not dangers to themselves or others.
I was going to say, well, yeah, your battle there isn't convincing Democrat legislators that they
Right.
should get rid of this. The
It's the
battle is
voters.
with voters. So one way to do this, and something we don't do enough of as a community, is more letters to the editor. Now we've had some excellent letters published, but one of our members did an outstanding job in getting a letter published down in the Virginia Beach area. He hit the ball out of the park, and he got two of his letters printed. That's one way to do it, because in those letters you can call out the craziness of going after a tool when you know the person holding the tool is the solution to the problem, that they need help and we're not getting it to them. We're wasting our money on trying to take a tool away from somebody that's got severe mental issues. That's how you do it. I think what hit home there was when you said, yeah, we got to peel back
Mm-hmm.
the cover. And the way you peel it back is you let the public know, and then hopefully they'll make better decisions come election time.
Right. And there were a few people earlier that said, can we get a pocket cue card for answers to questions that people might have, or comebacks for some of these gun control sound bites that they put out there? And Philip put out a gun derangement syndrome list, and the problem is it's extensive. There's so many things that they
Yeah.
say, but we can't be afraid to talk to people. I mean, how many of us are afraid to say to somebody, I'm a gun owner, or I'm a concealed carry holder, or something like that? And we want our privacy, and we don't want to be ridiculed publicly, but at the same time, if we don't make it commonplace again, we're not going to win the war of public opinion. It has to become mainstream again.
Yeah.
There's 700,000 concealed handgun permit holders in Virginia, and there's probably 200,000 or 300,000 more that own firearms that don't have a concealed handgun permit. So you're looking at a million-ish gun owners in Virginia, maybe, and so it's not like it's the exception. It is mainstream. But why are we afraid to talk about it?
I
It's
think
it's
there's
like the Baptist that buys the bottle of wine after church and asks for it to be put in a paper bag because they don't want their neighbors to see them carrying it.
Yeah, I think there's more. There's got to be at least 2.5 million gun owners in Virginia. If you look at the general population having 40% being gun owners, and we got
Mm-hmm.
well over a million. We've got to have 2.5 million, maybe more, especially in Virginia. But yeah, well, they want us in the closet, and we used to really be in the closet in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Then things started changing, and people started talking more about guns publicly and getting permits and carrying and pushing more pro-gun laws and all that. But we're still relatively, yeah, I agree, we're relatively in the closet still. We need
Right.
to be more. We need to make sure it's viewed as mainstream, which is the opposite of what the other side's trying to do. They keep trying to push us in the closet. Oh, you're a gun owner. We need to shame you. And
Yeah.
look at
So
the taxes. Those are
an
sin taxes that they're putting
uh-huh.
on guns.
An example is people that I get asked by people sometimes, well, why do you carry a gun? What are you afraid of? And one of my answers is, as a responsible adult, I am responsible for my own well being. And when my kids were in my care, I was not just responsible for me, I was responsible for them. If someone tried to kidnap one of my kids and I'm not armed, how am I going to stop that? I mean, there's to be an adult, to be a responsible adult, you have to be responsible for your own safety. It is not up to the government to protect you from the criminal. And that's
Yeah,
been proven in the courts time and time again. Juan, you were trying to say something.
Yes. So there is. I have an answer for you. During the Cold War, if you look at American movies, American shows, so cowboys, Die Hard, Bruce Willis, there was a narrative of the good guy with the gun. The cowboys, and even the rest of the world admire America so much that most of the best westerns were made in Italy and Spain.
yes.
A Fistful of Dollars,
Yeah.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The Good, the Bad,
Mhm.
and the Ugly is about the Civil War, and it was made by an Italian director, Sergio Leone. So after that, and I would say starting in the 90s or 2000s, because American meat is sold to the rest of the world, American meat is no longer made for Americans. It's made for the international market. And the international, I'm more of a movie person, to be honest. I just got lost here. But the that international market is asking and censoring our media to allow it over there. So when was the last time you saw a movie like Die Hard? When was the last time you saw a movie or a series that made you feel proud about being an American? Let me give you some homework.
Hmm.
Go watch Hocus Pocus, the original, and compare that to Hocus Pocus, the most recent one. It's been completely ruined by diversity inclusive nonsense. Like the
Mhm.
original movie, it's inclusive enough, but it's more like a love story, boy meets girl. Like it's a wonderful American movie story. When you watch the most recent one, it's just checking boxes, but there's nothing, there's no plot, there's no emotion. It's just fulfilling some silly arbitrary parameter that makes no sense. So that's why like there's no like Bruce Willis saves the day and from the Soviets. Like Bruce Willis is Soviets against the Americans basically. and he's the one guy who brought a weapon to the party, and he saves his marriage, he saves his wife, he saves everybody. When was the last time you saw something like that?
Yeah,
It's
it seems
a First
the,
Amendment
the
issue.
the outside influence, the one world government kind of thing, definitely is. We're seeing that influence. They are the ones that want to shut down America, because we're that shining light on the hill where people own guns and people have all these freedoms, and yet we're the most prosperous country out there. Meanwhile, the rest of the world's kind of going, "Oh no, no, we need socialism. We got to shut down that white bright light over there so that everybody can all share in the wonders of socialism." And what that really means is a handful of people figure they'll run everything, and everybody else will be their slave. And that's why we're under that pressure to disarm in the whole bit. It's coming from inside and outside, mostly outside. Billionaires spending all this money to disarm us. They're putting in serious money, and that's the goal. So it's just life, I guess. I mean, the world has always been. They've always had tyrants in the world. As long as there's been a world out there with humans in it, there have been tyrants. There will always be tyrants. Freedom will
Hmm.
always be something somebody wants to steal from somebody else so they can dominate them. I don't understand that thinking. I'm perfectly happy with everybody doing what they want to do as long as they're not hurting each other. I don't really care what they're doing. Enjoy your life. But there are people that live to control. I don't know what, I guess they're the mental cases too. They probably should be in institutions, but they've got this thing. They've got to control everybody. And guns take that control away from them. We hold
Hmm.
on. We hold the aces as long as we hold the guns.
So when bills are introduced that say this firearm is illegal for everybody to have except for the
Okay.
government, that should make the alarm bells go off in your head like crazy, because it is the classic oppression of the populace move.
Why?
So,
Yeah. Why do police, who are a civilian entity, police are not the military. Police are
mhm,
civilians,
mhm,
but their job is. Why do they need weapons of war? In
mhm,
other words, if you're going to take that argument that the public shouldn't have weapons of war, then why do the police need them?
right.
And of course, the answer we know the answer. It's all part of disarmament.
Well, I do want to add something else. We cannot just oppose everything. I think we should also promote some sort of laws who actually encourage a well-trained and well-regulated militia. I think we shouldn't like. I think the pro-Second Amendment law is more like an anti-everything. Like, no, we oppose, we oppose. I think, and it's something I would propose. Again, deceit. Uh, Push your own gun control laws. Let's start writing our gun control. Like I propose these gun control laws. This is gun control, and then gun control might mean you gotta train, like subsidize the ranges, or promote like every city has to have at least 5 ranges, or lower taxes on something. I think we need to be proactive. We cannot just be the anti everything.
Well, we've
If
put
we
in, we've
oppose,
had
we
bills
oppose.
put in for years, Juan. I mean, we have lots of bills, lots of the good laws we have in Virginia. VCDL is behind putting them in. We got full preemption. So we've been doing that every year, trying to say, but I see what you're saying too. We could maybe go from a different angle and get funding for ranges. That would be a good thing to do.
Hmm.
It's
Write
not
your own
really
gun
gun
control laws.
control, but
Control them,
yeah,
control the
it's
guns.
but we do
Hmm.
need to always be on the offensive. We always need to have we need to, you can't win a war by always being on the defensive, because eventually somebody will slip through something and then you'll take a step back and you'll keep stepping back. You need to be on the offensive. So when they let something slip, you go forward. So that's critical. But right now, all of the program we had like 10 bills that we had put in for us, and they're all dead. They were killed in subcommittee just like that. But we were pushing forward, and at some point, that balance is going to change in the General Assembly, and that forward movement will actually go forward again, like it was doing for us for many years in Virginia. We did a lot of moving forward while we had the opportunity. Right now, we're sort of stuck on the defensive side, but we're not going to stay there, and we're going to continue to put
Right.
in bills to move forward.
Yeah, we had several good bills put in this year. Like
Yeah, we
Philip
did.
said, they put those in the very first committee meeting and killed them dead flat. So you know,
Yeah. What
it's
awareness, what interest was like? Who found out about like? You always hear like the anti-Second Amendment crowd has a bunch of publicity and promotion and give me a second, I need to disconnect. But go.
okay.
All right. Probably needs to reset something.
Yeah,
Um,
that's okay. We're getting close to the end
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
So a couple of the other bills that I don't think you mentioned, Philip. There's several bills that are targeting um, the firearms industry specifically, and one of them they call it the industry standards of conduct, and it would allow for frivolous lawsuits if any business manufactures, distributes, or sells anything that has to do with firearms, and that is used in a way that they deem a public nuisance, then the retailer, the manufacturer, and the wholesaler could all be sued civilly. And the part that really gets me is that whoever brings the suit doesn't even have to prove intent to cause a public nuisance. So a criminal can, somebody can buy a gun and then it can be even stolen and used criminally. And the person who sold it, the gun store that sold it, the manufacturer that made it, and the distributor that took it from the manufacturer to the gun store, they can all be sued, and they can be shut down, have an injunction against them. They would have to pay court costs and attorney fees and punitive damages and all sorts of things. And it's obviously designed to put the industry out of business or encourage them to not do business in Virginia. Another one would shut down a lot of gun ranges. You know, the 5 acre rule that they put into place.
I want to
So,
say that one may be in trouble, but the reason I didn't bring those up is they didn't pass yet. They're still circulating over there. But yeah,
right.
and they in fact Pat got I guess upset one of the gun control guys because she pointed out in committee when that bill came up dealing with suing gun manufacturers. She said, "Well, but the other side,
What
intentionally
I
put in a
what
bunch
I
of."
yeah, what I said was there may be some groups represented here in this committee room that had repeatedly put in frivolous lawsuits with the intent of putting manufacturers out of business. and, and
And the truth
Horwitz,
hurt.
yeah, Horwitz got a little bit upset about that. He mumbled some words under his breath as I walked past him, and I'm like, if the shoe fits, dude.
Yeah, boy, just jam that sucker on your foot, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then the $500 tax on suppressors, I mean, and even if you if you can still buy the suppressors, they're outlawing threaded barrels pretty much. So if you want to have suppressors, buy your threaded barrels now, because after July 1st, they may not be allowed anymore. So we'll see.
Yeah, these
Um,
idiots, they keep putting this stuff in, and all they're doing is they're going to sell tons of ARs, they're going to sell tons of suppressors, all
mhm,
this stuff before July 1. There's going to be a rush as people go, well, I guess I need to stock up on AR-15.
right.
You might buy 2 or 3 unfinished receivers so that you got that ball covered, and you can later on
Mhm.
put together the rest of the rifle at
Yeah.
your leisure. But at least you got them.
I don't know if I should name Helmer or Lopez as my salesman of the month this month. So,
Helmer, they're both pretty bad, but Helmer, I
yeah,
think, takes the cake, especially
probably.
when he wraps himself in the fact that, well, he served in the military. Well, okay, that's
Hmm.
nice, but as soon as you got out of the military, you've done nothing but fight the Constitution you swore to uphold, and you still swear to uphold it every time you're sworn in to the General Assembly.
Yep.
So it's hard to thank you for your service to the country when you turn around and you're trying to destroy the country. It's
Yes.
like, Helmer, what do you want? What exactly do you want? What part of supporting and defending the Constitution you're not hearing?
I don't
It's
know.
just complexing. It's like,
So moving forward, since we're at almost 20 after 9 here, a few things for people to think about and to do and to encourage their friends, relatives, neighbors, coworkers, and all of that to do. One, if you're not a member of VCDL, join VCDL. Two, you
I
can
think
go
I'm
to,
yes.
yes,
Oh,
you,
sorry. I thought you called me, but you said one.
no, no,
yeah.
one, number one. Two, it's that Southern accent, I'm sorry. Two, donate, contribute. It's going to take a lot of money to fight these lawsuits. So vcdl.org/donate, vcdl.org/membership to join if you're not a member. Sign up for the VA alerts, and you can go back if you haven't been getting them. They're all on the page vcdl.org/VA-alerts, plural. And there's a tab up at the bottom of our homepage where you can see it. And they're also down at if you scroll all the way down the homepage, the most recent ones are there. But you can catch up on them if you've missed them and see where bills are. We have a legislative tracking tool that's VCDL-LIS for Legislative Information Services.org. And I had put that in the chat several times. And you can keep up with the bills there, and you can actually click on the section over on the right, tells you where they are in committee and so forth, and you can click on that and read the actual bills. When Philip puts out a legislative action alert, please click those links and send those emails. Also call your senator and delegate. And I don't want to hear, well, my senator always votes wrong. Those are the ones that we need to hit the most. We need to flood their emails and their phones with phone calls and emails and say, I want you to change how you're voting on this. Make it painful for them. If they're not going to do the right thing, make it hurt. That they need to get thousands and thousands of phone calls and emails, flood their inboxes. That is going to have an effect. So it used to be when VCDL put out one of these action alerts, we would get calls from the General Assembly saying, please make it stop. We can't find the emails that we need to see because there's so many emails from VCDL members about this bill. Please turn it off. Tell them to stop. And that's what we need again. They need thousands and thousands of emails. So when you get those alerts and they have an action item on it, forward it to all of your friends, but strip the unsubscribe link out of the bottom so that if somebody unsubscribes, it doesn't unsubscribe you because that's linked to your email. Did I forget anything? Oh, we're having an in-person meeting at XCal in Ashburn on the 19th of this month. So a week from this coming Thursday at 8 p.m. Show up early if you want a little range time or grab a meal at their snack bar. So I think that's everything, other than I do want to say thank you to everybody that tuned in tonight. We had quite a few people, and the chat was going by so fast I missed half of them, but I will go through and try to answer some of the questions that we missed. And I want to thank Juan for coming on and sharing his experience in Venezuela and why he came here. And thank you so much for being a team lead at Lobby Day. That's a very important task. All right, I'm out of breath. Philip, do you have anything else?
Yeah, the General Assembly continues. There will be an update. I might wait until crossover, right the day before crossover, whenever we've seen all of the gun bills either killed or passed out of their associated body. At that point, we'll do one more update to say, okay, here is the final list of what made it out of the House. what made it out of the Senate. Like I say, then it starts all over again. We may have you do more emails because before on House bills, we had you email the House about the bills in the House. Now that those bills will be going to the Senate, we'll need to do a Senate version of that. So we're telling the senators not to vote or to support a bill. So watch for those. And again, and the same for the House going with Senate bills. Those are going to be important things to keep the pressure up. If you can attend these committee meetings, either virtually or in person, better in person if you can do it, otherwise virtually. Let's keep up the pressure. Let's keep up. The game is still on. We're coming up to halftime, and then we're going to start rolling the rest of the way. And then it'll be a matter of what's the governor going to do. The governor can veto a bill. She can sign it. It becomes law in July 1, or she can send it back with changes. She can say, I don't like this, and you either do it my way or I'm vetoing, or she can say, I like this change, but you don't have to do it. But there's still going to be some back and forth until she signs the final bill. And then that bill is done. We know exactly what it is, and the lawsuits can begin. Marching at that point is kind of a waste of time. At that point, we need to dig in, get ready for next year's elections, and so forth. So anyhow, that's all I've got.
I saw a comment from Jacqueline saying, I'm disappointed there isn't a plan for something in person where the public can see the support for the preservation of our rights. There is a plan. Show up at these committee meetings. We have been outnumbered by the people in red shirts, and we cannot have that anymore. So if you're anywhere near Richmond when these committee meetings happen, and yes, they happen during work hours a lot of times, but if you can show up in person, please do so, because that does make a difference. They can't ignore you as easily when you're sitting in the room wearing a sticker that says gun saves lives. If you can't show up in person, sign up to testify virtually. Even if you don't get a chance to speak, they count the number of people that are for a bill or against a bill. And if you do get a chance to speak, keep it short and sweet and just say, I oppose this bill for the reasons that VCDL gave, or I oppose this bill and I agree with VCDL and the NRA, what they said. That way somebody else also has time to speak.
Yep.
All right. Philip rules, blah, blah, blah. Yes, and you can also, on the House side, you can submit public comments to the bills when they're in committee. The Senate does not have that feature. Excuse me, tickle in my throat. Anyway, we're at 9:25 and we have gone way over. Thank you all for joining. There's a lot of important information that we got through tonight. This will be up on YouTube under the live tab on the VCDL page, and on the Facebook under the live tab after it does its thing. It's on events now, but after it's over, it moves over to the live. So you can share it with other people, and hopefully they'll listen to it while they're commuting to work and so on and so forth. And we need to get everybody involved. So, anybody have anything else to say here?
I would just say a couple people at the end here are posting about links to where they can give written testimony and all that. Those are in the alerts. So if you look at the action items, the legislative action item alerts, that information should be in there where you can sign up or just leave a comment on each bill and how to contact your legislators. It's all in there. Just watch for those legislative action items.
Yep.
Thank you, Juan. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I just want to close very briefly. Look, there's a lot of outrage and divisiveness, and it's not good to hold onto bitter feelings. Let's try to be moved by love. Let's try to be moved by feelings of joy and happiness, and by chocolates and flowers too. All right, that will be a message to all of you. Just follow hope, follow love. That's better than outrage and hate and divisiveness. That's my message. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, guys, have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Good night.